Hey everyone, this is Southern Fried Chat again, here with Murad. Thanks for coming back on, man.
Thanks for having me, man. Pleasure to be here.
Awesome. How are you feeling about SPX 6900 at this point?
Very bullish. I think belief is stronger than ever, community stronger than ever. I think price, is a lagging indicator. What's most important is to continue building the community, onboarding people, fostering belief. And from what I'm seeing, our people are showing up like crazy. There's actually a couple of Telegram channels that are tracking like the most mentioned tickers, the most active communities. And in the last week, for the first time in several months, in fact, I'm seeing SPX be there like number 9, number 10, in the same on similar tiers as Hype and XRP, which I think is super, super bullish.
Yeah, that's awesome. Also, just are they able to eliminate bots in their calculations? Because a lot of those are botted. The bigger coins.
Oh, yeah, definitely. The bigger coins are definitely bought it, and I think that's the case for the 7 or 8 places above us. But
Yeah,
the very fact that we are in that top 15, I
yeah,
think is super bullish.
yeah. I wonder if they eliminate or able to figure out how to eliminate the bots, and if they did, I wonder how high we'd be then. But anyways, that's if it is including bots, that's really good. What feedback do you have for the community at this point?
I think the most important thing for everybody to be thinking about is what are some creative ways we can bring the SPX 6900 concept in front of new eyes, in front of new people. And I think that's like the most important thing to do. Creative ways to make videos on TikTok, creative ways on Reddit, on YouTube. I'm trying to go hard on YouTube personally, and obviously the offline initiatives as well. There's like 1,000 ways to do it. Everybody, has their own backgrounds, has their own talents. So it's very important. Like onboarding people and growing the community, I think is the most important thing in the long term.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you seen that video from DePonzi? Uh, the
Love that stuff. Love that stuff. The French are going crazy, and it has that Order of Saint Francis vibes, which
yeah,
which I think is quite cool.
yeah. No, it's amazing. He's so funny. It's such a fun video. I actually thought about making that the outro video because when he zooms out, it says "persist forever." I just think it's in the video. Yeah, that's a great one. Um,
For sure, for sure.
what are some things that you've liked from the community recently? Anything you'd like to highlight?
There's just so much going on. So much going on behind the scenes as well that we're cooking. Nothing specific comes to mind, but what I'll say is what I really love about SPX 6900 in particular is that whenever like price, Bitcoin, stock market, whatever goes down, I almost feel like our people show up even stronger and
Yes.
show up in even bigger ways. Um, this guy Sharon is also working on a really cool thing. He's calling it Cogme,
Yeah.
which is like this giant encyclopedia almost of like all the SPX 6900 events, materials, etc. So that's something that I've really liked as well.
Yeah, and Mike has done a really amazing website recently. He's already made several, but the aeon6900.com, it has like little events that have happened since inception. If you scroll down, it's really beautifully laid out in a linear fashion with all the events. It's really cool. And a lot of other things too on that website. But yeah, yeah, I'm looking forward to when Chiron actually gets that done with. And yeah, he's I think he's pays very close attention to every detail. So I think that's why it's taking time. Yeah, and you mentioned that you're going hard on YouTube, which I think is really smart because then previously you were making TikToks, which were really good, but I know that was probably more time intensive, and you had to create a script or something to that effect for each video. But now you can just record a video and then take snippets from them. So I think that's smart.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a few things here. So if you make short form content, that's harder to mash into a long video. But if you make a long video, that's easier to break down into smaller pieces, like you said. The other thing is, I think historically, past large crypto successes, they have succeeded because they had a very big foothold on YouTube. XRP, Cardano, a bunch of others, they've always gone very, very hard on YouTube. And I think that was one of the reasons for their success.
Yeah.
The other thing is, frankly, I think a YouTube viewer is more likely to have a little bit more patience, have a little bit more money, have a little bit more interest in the way like the world works compared to like super short form like doom scrollers. And also, if someone is interested in making an investment or has made an investment, I think they're more likely to watch like medium length or longer length video to kind of learn about it in more detail rather than just like a 19-second video, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean the shorts are a good attention grabber, but that may be all it is a quick attention. It's still definitely worth still doing, but yeah, I think the long form is where it's at for sure. Have you thought about using somebody from the community asked this clippers, not necessarily to clip the videos to put on your account, but to spread it across many accounts? I know a lot of streamers do this currently. Has that ever crossed your mind?
Yeah, I'm having a couple of conversations about that with a couple of guys right now.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, that's awesome. I know people from the community already do clip a good bit of your videos too, already.
Yep.
But yeah, maybe a more organized. That'd be cool. Um, for meme coin communities that are struggling at this point, with the recent downturn, and a lot of times that doesn't help them when there is a downturn. I think SPX kind of rallies behind it. What advice would you give them?
First of all, like I've been saying many, many times, community is by far the most important thing. And whenever you do invest, whenever you do decide to hold, make sure that there is a mission, there is a goal, there is a movement, there is a really emotionally charged and powerful concept around the meme, which will keep people coming back, sticky in the community, and continue persisting no matter what kind of volatility happens. So it's not enough for one person to work really hard and believe really hard. If you consider yourself to be such a person, you also need to align yourself with a group of people where there are enough of such people already working together, if that makes sense. Essentially, you need a critical mass of believers for the belief to flourish into reality. Also, some of it is more of an art than a science, but make sure that the metrics that are relevant to meme coins are on your side. You want the amount of money that a median and the average person is investing to be above average, which in my opinion is that's like the mathematical way of measuring emotional resonation with the concept. You want to study the wallets, make sure that people are holding a large percentage of their portfolio in that particular coin. You want to make sure that the whales are diamond-handed rather than getting out. You want to make sure that the whales are not only diamond-handed, but you also know at least a few of them, and that there's evidence of them working hard, in public, in private. You want all of these sort of signals and trends to align in your favor. Fundamentally, there needs to be a clear path. There needs to be a clear vision, a clear possibility for your coin, for your concept to, I think, to go to 20 billion plus, 30 billion plus at the very minimum. Otherwise, it's not even worth pursuing at all, in my opinion. So you want to really be dreaming big when it comes to meme coins. I think that's how you succeed.
Yep. Yeah, I think reality and what's happening in some folks' communities, I think there's a disconnect there, because you may have really, really wanted that coin or that community to succeed, and when it's just clearly not, you've got to accept that reality. I know that from personal experience as well. So
Absolutely. And also, but I think, like, as unfortunate as that may be, I also think that whenever really big dips do happen, ultimately it almost like a type of thinning, at least among the medium caps, large caps, because some of the coins, essentially, for some coins it will be a mortal blow, but for others it will actually be an advantage, because if they do survive, then the future incoming wave of investors or retail or whoever, they'll technically have a smaller overall pool of coins, at least at the mid cap level and above, to choose from, if that makes sense.
True.
So ultimately, there will be, like, instead of 9 coins having to compete, then it will be 5 coins to compete, 3 coins to compete, etc. So surviving is the most important. If the coins that ultimately are gonna go to like decabillions, centibillions, are those that they get hit, they come back higher. They get hit, they come back higher, and that's how you prove yourself over and over again.
Yep. What do you think of the market currently?
I am bullish, actually. And my next video is going to be about this topic. I'm hoping to release it in the next, 4 or 5 days.
Cool.
Essentially, I think that the market is bottoming or close to bottoming. I've said this on a couple of last podcasts and streams that I've been invited to. I think in the next 3 weeks, we'll see a bottom, if we haven't seen one already. And I think this is a dip. I don't think this is the bear market. I think this is a giant bear trap. I remain quite bullish. I think a bunch of things have kind of coincided together. Obviously, the dip in the stock market, obviously a prolonged government shutdown, which requires a couple of weeks after opening back up to kind of get things rolling again. Obviously, there's some funding stresses in the economy. We are in a kind of a transitionary period between QT and QE, and these things are have downwards pressure on the price. Not to mention the October 10th, aka 1010, and the rumors associated with it. Did some big entity, lose a lot of money, and they are a forced seller. Regardless, I think this is a dip. I think it's good that it happened sharply rather than bleeding down slowly, because it's always better. It's always better to rip the band-aid off and to start building sort of the next foundation, rather than to have a very prolonged, year-long bleed, right? But I'm very bullish. I think sentiment is at multi-year lows right now, even though we're only down, from 120 to 80. But I think in the next 2 to 3 weeks, we're going to be building up a base for the next move higher.
Yeah, that's what I don't understand. Like, just to talk about the market a little bit more, because I'm sure you know a lot more about it than I do. But if we end up at, for Bitcoin, 80,000 at the end of the year, let's say that's where it ends up. That's a bear market year, right? Because we started at 90 something, so it's down for the year. Or am I missing something? So that would mean the 4-year cycle that a lot of people are kind of citing is already broken, right? They're just saying it's broken to the downside, or what do you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, depending on what definition of the bear market you use, in the stock markets, you have to be negative 20% or more.
Okay, gotcha.
In crypto, I would argue it's even more. I mean, if you look at yearly candles, then usually historically in crypto, it's been 3 green, 1 red, 3 green, 1 red. But we're also absorbing a lot of sellers that still believe in the 4-year prophecy, so to speak.
Yeah.
But I think the 4-year cycle is dead, personally. And either this is going to be a 5-year cycle, 6-year cycle, or you should just forget about cycles entirely. And the market is mature, and now it's going to be just a variety of mini cycles, so to speak, moving forward.
Yeah.
But I think sooner or later, obviously, the 4-year cycle would have been broken, right? So
yeah, and I think to just sentiment wise, like you said, it's like horrible right now. It reminds me of the end of 22, which I thought sentiment back then was insane, but it's really, really, it is surprising because it's like 120 something to 80 something, and in crypto terms, that's percentage wise, that's not a lot. But maybe it's just because of bigger numbers. I don't know. But anyways, it's interesting. Has it surprised you at all?
Not really, because think about it. If there was always going to be 40 to 60% of the participants that would be believing in the 4-year cycle in one way or another, right? So it makes sense that there's a pause here, and essentially the market is testing the crypto community, so to speak, regarding how strongly they'll be affected by the 4-year prophecy, whether it's going to become a self-fulfilling prophecy, how strong is the buying? Is the buying strong enough to break the 4-year prophecy, essentially? And that's kind of the exam. That's kind of the exam that the market has to pass right now.
Yeah, that makes sense. How do you use AI in your day to day?
I don't use it at all.
Really
Yep.
interesting. Hmm. I definitely do. In certain situations, especially with the podcast, I feed it the transcript and it spits out like YouTube chapters for it. Hmm. That's surprising. I figured you would. I figured you would. Have you ever used it?
I've used it on occasion, like a couple of Gemini queries and stuff like that. But I don't super extensively use it. I mean, a couple of my friends are helping me with some clipping stuff, and they use software in that regard.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I don't like to rely on it. I'll tell you why. Because I think it atrophies the creativity muscle, if that makes sense. And the reason is I like things that are artisanal and handcrafted, if that makes sense. And
Yeah.
I think in the coming years there will be a premium for any kind of product, whether it's physical or digital, that was done 100% without the use of AI.
Yeah, I agree. 100%. I think artisanal will thrive. Actually, probably even more so than today.
Definitely, definitely, for sure.
Okay, to get a little bit philosophical for a bit, have you stated that the ultimate purpose for a man is to make their kids' lives better than theirs? I believe from the Gray BTC interview. I 100% agree with that. My daughter is 1.5 years old. My wife and I also plan to have another. I invest in her ever since she was born. I put a little bit of money aside every month into an investment account. So I 100% agree with all that. My question is, do you have kids, or do you plan to have kids?
I don't have any at the moment, but I do plan to have some, yes.
Awesome. Is that something you're wanting to happen soon, or are you? I know some people really focus on their career for long time and maybe do it much later. How do you see that for yourself? Or have you thought about that much?
Um, Probably when I'm like 36, 37.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Cool. Um, yeah, it's great. I thought that was a really great thing that you said, because I think having kids is not looked down upon, but definitely not as popular as it should be, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, because the system and the media are working in cahoots in order to systematically attack all traditional values, you know, gender norms, everything from the mid 20th century, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, it's kind of insane. Um,
Yeah, I mean, this is the number one driver of why mental health is at an all-time low, because the biggest driver of happiness is family, intimacy, friendships, community, and essentially the contemporary world has destroyed all of these things. Now, we can debate whether that has happened organically through certain feedback loops, bottom up, or there are certain forces at play, top down, that are accelerating this decline. But one way or another, it's the obliteration of these things, essentially human contact and human touch, which is by far the number one reason why, despite the world as a whole having a higher GDP than ever before, the mental health, I would argue, is worse than a thousand years ago.
yeah, it's wild, and it's all kind of self-imposed, I think, through the programming. What's interesting is, or what I think, like during the COVID lockdown, I think that was taken to another extreme. And I think it's really broken some people in a lot of ways. And I believe if people were like okay with it, like if the majority of people kind of embraced it, I think the majority of people didn't. That's why it ended. I believe we'd still be under it personally, because I think it was. I don't know. I'm a little conspiracy theory on that one for sure. Um, what does okay to shift gears a little bit? What does pretending to be cute girls mean to you in SPX? What does that mean? Like, what's the underlying meaning to that?
Yeah, I mean, as a lot of other things in SPX 6900 is not meant to be taken literally, but it's a metaphorical symbol, which is supposed to, in my opinion, represent kind of purity and innocence and good-heartedness, with the other, with the polar opposite being kind of older men that are more so symbolizing, greed, corruption, and the, indebtedness, and a lot of the other, let's say, suboptimal behaviors of, the boomer demographic, and
Right.
and what they've done, what they have done to the Western world.
Auto.
I think that's an interesting take, and I think that makes a lot of sense. My take is it's kind of like the ultimate irony, kind of, or sort of like it represents like ego death to a degree, because most of the people in the community are men. There's definitely have some females for sure, but it's like you're uh that's one of the most men don't want to pretend to be a girl or act feminine. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? So it's like
because they think it will make them be gay or whatever, right?
yeah, exactly, the fear of being gay. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So
I mean, it also has to, it's also kind of a test, because by being unafraid to use that symbol, you kind of show that you have, like, the average SPX 6900 believer that's going to join the community is essentially going to be filtered as a person who's like less insecure than other people. And there's a
right,
bunch of those
right.
kinds of tests as you kind of join and get entrenched in the SPX 6900 community. And these act as kind of a filtering mechanism. And that's why SPX 6900 community is so strong, continues to persist, is euphoric, regardless of what's going on with price, because through all that filtering, we just get relatively much higher quality people as we onboard.
Well, it's also super troll worthy, and which I love that too. And
Definitely.
when I revealed my face, I had a follower that said, "I thought you were an e-girl." I was like, "Sorry to disappoint." And I think he was
That's very funny.
serious because he unfollowed me after
It's
that.
also supposed to be like symbolizing, because, especially early on in 2023 and to this day, SPX 6900 has a lot of parallels with anime culture. And we use a lot of that kind of imagery in our memes, both picture memes and video memes.
Yeah,
And in, Gen Alpha, Gen Z, a lot of software engineers, etc., they often already use female anime characters as their avatars online. So yeah,
true.
it's just part and parcel with those kinds of cultures.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I have a few more community questions as well. What kind of mainstream headlines would you expect to see when we do pierce through the veil and really hit those super high targets that we all believe will happen?
I think a lot of people will start making parallels with GME, because it is probably, even though it's not a perfect metaphor, it's probably the easiest way to explain to a completely brand new person like exactly what's going on, and it's probably the closest comparable, the closest parallel thing. So I think a lot of people will be making those parallels to late 2020, early 2021, which I think makes perfect sense. By the way, I think the current dip in BTC is very similar to the COVID nuke we had in Q1
Mm,
of 2020.
mm,
And I think 2019 was essentially similar to, or rather, I should say, the 2023-2025 wave was similar to 2019. And that's why I'm expecting bullishness ahead. But I think essentially people will realize that it's people online banding together to essentially send out a sort of a metaphorical middle finger to the outside world. And GME, I think, is going to be a big parallel here, and how a lot of people will be onboarded as well.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Have you heard of Cognisphere X? It's an account and an initiative. Have you heard of that yet?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, so for those that don't know, it's kind of a way for people to place bounties to get people to do certain things, or to even help out people who may be struggling with something. Well, what do you think about that
Yeah,
initiative?
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Uh, what is what's the okay? Let me put it two different ways. What's the coolest component about SPX 6900? And another way to put it, what is the biggest benefit to you personally outside of the financial?
I think persisting forever, not trading, believe in something. While all of these pertain to crypto and investments and coins, ultimately, I think it goes out of that. And goes beyond that and starts influencing other parts of your life. I think generally that kind of mindset and that kind of brain rewiring, if I will, makes you more patient and long-termist in other areas of your life. Instead of expecting immediate results, you understand that the greatest change has to happen gradually and consistently and through like a million daily victories, so to speak. And in general, I think it makes your life better overall, in my
Hmm.
opinion, by making you sort of less of an addict and making you kind of zoom out and making you extend your time horizons in a variety of endeavors.
Absolutely. And I think also another cool thing is it's introduced a lot of people to Bitcoin, which I personally like. But yeah, and which the big thing in the Bitcoin community is to have that high time preference, which I think is good. Uh, do you ever have doubts about SPX?
No, and in fact, with every passing day, my belief only grows stronger.
Heal.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, I think for me as well. Um, it's continue to see it grow. So let's make a comparison to a traditional investment, Warren Buffett style or Benjamin Graham style. You look at the revenues. You look at is it underpriced or to their assets and the revenues and that sort of thing. What metric do you? I know you talk about diamond hands, but what's like how? Uh, yeah, I guess what are the metrics again? I'm sure you've mentioned it before, but maybe remind folks.
So there's like there's a bunch, there's like 20 things, but I'll mention like maybe 7 or 8 right now, which I think are the most important. I think it's measuring whale diamond handedness. You can also measure minnow diamond handedness, which is more like upper middle class people. And you can actually measure diamond handedness across the board, across all cohorts. I think that's super important because fundamentally it shows very strong culture, very strong long-term belief. And it also shows that people are continuing to persist, especially if you compare SPX 6900 to other sides of the market. There are several ways to measure decentralization and distribution, which I think is very, very important as well. You know, for the movement to succeed, it needs to be as decentralized as possible. On the more sort of tactical side of things, I think mentions on social media, number of people talking about it daily or weekly is also something that's very useful to measure. Like I've already alluded to earlier during our conversation, the amount of people that each sort of marginal investor, each new investor is investing is very important as well. You know, for an average meme coin, I think it's like $50, but for SPX 6900, I believe it's more around $500, which is actually a huge difference. And SPX 6900, I believe, is number one, or in some cases, number two across all of the metrics that I mentioned, which really goes to show that um, emotionally speaking, and in terms of belief, this is the one that has caught people's hearts and souls the most so far. And I think if you combine this with the fact that, at least in my opinion, retail hasn't really arrived this cycle, and this has been predominantly just like CT and CT adjacent, then that means that we're building a very, very strong base and foundation for when retail does, in my opinion, inevitably arrive.
Yeah, I I go by my intuition on this and just personally feeling the growth and being involved. It's just so obvious that to me that SBX has the most passion, the most uh, content growth, and it's real. That's another thing people need to realize with a lot of the other meme coins. It's not real. It's a lot of fake. It's a lot of payment. It's a lot of
Yep,
bullshit, frankly. So um, you got to be discerning when you're looking at other communities.
definitely, definitely. It's like
Sorry, good.
I look, I've been in crypto since 2013, and this is one of the most organic, legit, and bottom up, leaderless movements that I've seen and the most grassroots things that I've seen emerge like in over a decade.
Somebody asked me. Just this is a side point to this. Somebody asked me if I worked for you. I was like,
That's crazy.
I'm like, no. I just started
It's
this.
almost it's I guess not that I would know, but it's probably similar to when a natural bodybuilder gets asked if they're on steroids. So I think
Yeah.
it should be taken as a compliment.
Yeah, I was like, no, uh, absolutely not.
It's crazy. The world is so corrupt and short-termist
Yeah,
that people can't even fathom the idea of doing something out of pure passion and belief.
right. Well, they all think that you're. I mean, a lot of the naysayers in crypto Twitter think you're like a cult leader, and we're just all following you essentially. So I think that's where that
I
comes from.
think I think because a lot of people on CT, especially the haters in the comments, um, A, they have lost money
Yeah,
and they would have actually still had a much bigger chunk of their portfolio if they were in SPX 6900. And they see that both me as an individual and especially SPX 6900 as a community is one of the very, very, very few things this cycle that's not giving up no matter what, that's continuing to persist, continuing to hustle. And that annoys people that have fell into traps of other KOLs over the past 18 months and lost money, right? And it's called the crabs in the bucket mentality. Like in the movies, when somebody falls into a volcano, they want to grab another person's leg and to
yeah,
kind of drag them down also, out of spite. Unfortunately, that's very common behavior in the world.
yeah,
Sabotage. If you've already lost, you want to make other people lose as well. This is
yeah,
the same exact. This is a very similar reason why um, it's a very similar reason why extremely unattractive people are attracted to various radical ideologies. It's because they don't see like a normal, consistent, like old school way to win in this world. So
hmm
they would rather either destroy the system or restructure the system or do something like this in order to essentially spite everybody
yeah,
or to you know what I mean, right?
yeah,
So you just got to ignore the haters and continue persisting, in my opinion.
yeah, yeah. I mean, some people feel like they got dealt a bad hand, so they just end up being spiteful, which is not a good look. I mean, it's much easier to like lovely people than terrible people. Just advice for people who may be falling into that trap. Uh, uh, do you think there's a correlation between frugality and non-materialistic type people and SPX holders?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. I mean, I can't speak of others, but um, I have not spent more than $5,000 on any given month since late 2017. So at least for me, that's the case. You know what I mean?
That's wild. I spend more money than you, and I know you have a lot more than me. It's just funny. That's crazy. Did you remind me of my roommate from college? He was like that, and he's still that way. He works for Meta. He makes a buttload of a salary, and he spends nothing. And he refuse like he's
Yeah.
so extreme about it. Like he will not buy a computer monitor. He refuses to buy a computer monitor. Just works on his laptop, which is like total totally
Well,
crazy to
it's
me.
like it's like those memes, which is like for a man, just one room with a laptop and a mattress is all he needs.
Yeah,
It also reminds me of a Kanye West lyric from one of his old albums where he goes, it's like white people make money, don't spend it.
yeah. He is white, and he's a little. He's
Yeah.
very crazy too. But he's awesome.
I mean,
We
I
get
think I
along.
just realized I realized around 13 years old, I think, which is the last time I remember myself like wanting uh like a physical object. Which was like a mobile phone. We still had Nokias back in those days. Um, I kind of realized that whenever you get something like this, you're like only happy for like 3 days and then it goes away anyway. So to me, as cliche as that sounds, I'm more into collecting experiences and emotions, and like community, like people related experiences rather than I don't really care about really material things.
Yeah, yeah. That's how my old roommate was. We're still friends, and yeah, same way. Um, any final thoughts?
Persist forever. This is our time to show up even harder than ever and keep putting out all kinds of media out there, especially video content.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on again. I appreciate it. Always great to talk to you. I look forward to doing this again at some point in the future. Please like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Until next time, persist forever, Aeons.